Hello, I am Dorothy Smith. I am the owner of Wellness Arts Counseling in Centerville, Virginia. This is for informational purposes only, but I hope it gives you a little insight into boundaries today. So what I'm going to talk about are internal boundaries. We have two different types of boundaries, which are internal and external. External are simply the boundaries you make with others. They're the boundaries that you set in your life around things, but with other people. Internal boundaries are the boundaries that you set with yourself. I think they are so important because internal boundaries are what allow you to be authentic to yourself. They're what help you navigate the world and feel safe and feel like you are being true to yourself, that you're not just caving into everybody else, and that you are really checking in with yourself and grounding yourself in what works for you. So there's three types of boundaries, and the very first one is probably the one that I see a lot of, the most of, next to the rigid boundary. The very first one is the soft boundary, the person that is always saying yes, that is too anxious and worried about saying no to actually do that. And so what they're doing with themselves is they're telling themselves, I don't want to rock any boats. I don't want people to be mad at me. I want to be liked. I want others to, I just want things to run smoothly, and I want my life to be quiet. And so what they're doing is they're just allowing things to happen, and they're kind of just saying yes. It can be in an abusive relationship where you're just saying yes and you're allowing the abuse to continue. It can be just everyday stuff where you're taking on too many things that other people are asking you to do, and your well is not filled anymore. And instead of checking in with yourself and saying, hey, I too need a break. I too need some space and some time. And I too need to be true to myself and give myself the same consideration that I'm giving everybody else. And if you're doing that internally, then you're starting to shift those boundaries and starting to be more true to yourself. And I think that's a very important thing. But when we have that sort of squishy, people-pleasing boundary, it will suck you dry, and others don't necessarily know they're doing it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they're taking advantage, but other times they're just, they're just taking advantage of someone who seems nice. And so what happens with that is, in the long run, if people are expecting you to do this and you're always doing it, they take that on as a support in their life, and then they get angry when you say no. So it's better to be able to say, hey, no, I can't, because I need time for myself. I need some energy for myself. I am overwhelmed, etc. in the beginning. And then people understand that you can do certain things that you've made a decision around. And there's other things you can't, because you're being true to yourself and you're taking care of yourself. The middle ground one is the firm boundary. And the firm boundary is great. The firm boundary says, I'm going to take things on a case-by-case situation, and I'm going to decide what works for me. Now, you have to have a pretty good internal compass for that, because if you don't, you might be justifying to yourself this people-pleasing thing. You might be saying, oh, you know what? I can do that. I'm really Superwoman. I can do all of these things. Or I'm Superman. I got it. I can just do that. And I have all this capacity. And what's really happening is you are wearing yourself to a nub, and you're not sleeping, and you don't have, at work, you might be overtaxed, etc. So knowing yourself and knowing what your limits are, and knowing what you need, and knowing when you need rest, and knowing when you need space, and knowing when you need whatever it is you need in a relationship is very important. And very important to setting these good boundaries. So checking in with yourself and saying, oh yeah, I got it, is not always a good thing. Sometimes checking in with yourself and just looking at yourself and saying, yeah, I notice that my body feels tired right now. Or, yeah, 10 hours a day of work, or 12 hours, or some people are doing like 15 hours a day of work, it's not good for me, and I'm not getting whatever else I need in life. What would I like? What do I need? Asking those questions, very important for good internal boundaries. The third type of internal boundary, and this is the one that I see in therapy a lot as well, is driven sometimes by trauma. Actually, the yes trauma, always saying yes, the soft boundary can also be driven by trauma, but also hard boundaries can, because they are the castle walls. They are the building things around ourselves so that others can't access us. And what that does is often that will socially isolate us, or it'll make us seem like we're unapproachable. It can shut off relationships because we're afraid to have a relationship. It's driven by either a fear of something happening again, anxiety that something may happen, or it can be just past experience that we're just like, nope, not going there ever again. That's it. And those are so strong, those boundaries, that we're not willing to even check in with ourselves, even to kind of decide whether this is a situation where we want to make a change or make a consideration. It can keep us from having relationships, like I said. So somebody approaches us and they seem like a great person and a great guy, and we're thinking about a past relationship, and we're like, nope, not doing it. There will be no relationships here. And you might cut yourself off from something that was really great. Or somebody at work says, hey, I need some help today. And you're like, I'm not doing somebody else's work no matter what. And they're like, my daughter's been in an accident. I've got to go do something. And you're like, nope, sorry. That erodes work relationships where, kind of team building would be great at that point, where you say, yeah, I can. Normally I wouldn't take somebody else's work on, but sure, I can do this for you today. The rigid boundary can also be the boundary that keeps us from socializing, keeps us from moving out into the world. And so what we're doing is we're creating walls here and we're creating walls out there. And what we need to do is be able to start softening that, checking in with ourselves and saying, hey, what do I need in this situation? Socially, we might say, it's a little bit of a risk. It's a risk to go out and try a new relationship, or it's a risk to go out and meet people, but I'm willing to take that. I'm going to at least take a shot at it. So you're checking in with yourself, and then you might go and you might find, it was kind of awkward. And checking in with yourself again would be to go, yeah, it was awkward, but I haven't been out there for a while. And so I need a little bit of time maybe to move through that awkward stage. Or it might be saying, yeah, it was awkward. Maybe that's not the group for me, but I'll try them one more time. So that's coming back into the middle ground, into that firm sort of like giving yourself a little bit of space boundary. That's why boundaries are so important, because they start to give us a change, a way to relate to the world that's different from whatever we've learned that isn't working for us. And it's a much better way to navigate. It gives us a forward, it helps us be authentic, and it also helps other people because we're able to communicate better. We're able to understand ourselves better, and we're more relaxed. So again, those are the ways that we can come into the world in a better way, and that's why boundaries are so important. Thank you, and I hope that you go forward with a little more information today. Bye-bye.